Hey everybody, Trevor here again. And if you've been following along, we've been working on metrics, dimensions, and segments. And the last little component that you need to do analysis, and if you've ever used an analytics tool before, you'll be familiar with it, is calculated metrics. Calculated metrics allow you to create important metrics that are a calculation of other metrics combined together. They're kind of useful for when you want to do things like revenue per visitor or pages per session or average time spent per user, things like that. So, what we're going to show today is how you create a calculated metric. And it's kind of similar to how we created stuff before. So, let's just dive in. When I want to create a metric, I can hit new, and this is what it shows when you create a normal metric. But if you want to create a calculated metric, you can switch the type to calculated. Now, a calculated metric happens on aggregations in a table. It's a little different than a row level metric. And so different things are supported, and it lets you do different types of options. So let's say, for example, I wanted to do revenue per user. In that case, all I need to do is drag in total revenue, and I could do a divides and do unique users. Now, when I add these two metrics in, it basically is going to give me a little calculation here and show me at the bottom what that calculated metric will look like if I use it. Pretty simple calculated metric, classic use case, total revenue divided by users. And if I wanted to save it, I could just give it a name, revenue per user, and an ID, revenue per user. And I can give it some data formatting stuff, just like you're used to with other sorts of metrics. So in this case, I could say, let's make it currency with 2 decimal points and a $ prefix, and I can create that metric. Now, when I pull that in against a dimension, say like my day dimension here, and I can pull in revenue per user. I pull that in, and sorting by the day, I can get a nice trend of all the different revenue per user on each day, and it works just like any calculated metric you're used to. If you visualize it, I added this new little visualization button. You can kind of get a trend and see how that looks. So, nothing too crazy fancy here, pretty simple. Calculated metrics do support lots of more complicated operations. For example, if I wanted to, add a segment on top of a metric, you can do that. So, for example, if I said page views and I wanted that only for my email users, I can drag that segment onto the page views metric, and now it'll give me a calculated metric with just that segment applied, which is pretty cool. And just like the other things too, we've also added in a very useful AI assistant to help you create calculated metrics if you want. So, for example, it's pretty aware of common use cases, and I might say, give me a conversion rate metric. And it's going to go through just like before and look at the different metrics that you have, the segments that you have. It'll query them, make sure that there's not a duplicate already. And based on what it pulls together, it will create the formula that it thinks meets your criteria the best. And just like that, it's found unique purchasing users was a metric I had, divided by unique users times 100 to give me that percent format, which is great. If I save that, it'll then, show up in my report and look great. But oftentimes you might say, well, hold on a minute. I want to create a conversion rate metric, but at the session level, not at the person level. So it can help you with that too. So let's do that. Give me a conversion rate metric at the session level. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to go through and look at all of your segments and see if you have everything that you need to actually create that metric. And if you don't have it, it will recommend things that you need. So we'll see if it does that here. So you can see now it's telling me this formula needs a segment that doesn't exist yet. So it needs a segment that's session had a purchase where, sessions that contain at least one purchase so it can then divide that by unique sessions. You can see that it wants to do that there. So we've added this nice convenience function here or button. I can just click create segment, and then it will create that segment for you and inject it straight into your calculated metrics. So pretty smart. It knows if it has everything it needs, and if it doesn't, it can help you create that in a convenient way. So let's go ahead and create this metric. And again, I can now just add this in. And I can see now purchase conversion rate, which is great. Let's hide this one so I can see it a little better. Perfect. And you can see it's got that nice percent formatting, and there you go. So really simple, calculated metrics. So yeah, feel free to give it a try. All you have to do is sign up for the early access program, and I'd be happy to let you try it yourself. Thanks. See you later.